Okay, 1984 fxwg. The rear brake's sticking, so what I'll do is probably just remove the caliper and clean the piston, and it should be all good. This bike spends most of its time in the garage. I assume it'll be sold one day. I've got to be really honest and say I'm just not a Harley Davidson person, but I've got this bike, and you know, I maintain it and try and keep it going. You can't really buy these bikes anymore. There's not too many of them on eBay. When I first got it, you'd see an occasional one on the road, but these days you don't see them anymore. Not registered on the road. Good thing about this bike is parts. You can get parts from the USA, and they're fairly affordable. One thing I will say about this bike, unlike the other bikes, it starts and goes, and you know, that's better than 95% of the other bikes out there. Okay, so I'll remove the caliper. If when I remove the caliper the bike's able to be moved easily and freely, that means that the problem's in the caliper, and I'll clean the caliper. Before I forget, these are your bleeding nibs here, so when you've got air in your system, you undo them and get the air out and then tighten them up again. This is your piston here. You notice that they're very close. What you need to do is cover this with one of these things here. And that hole there, that just goes on top of the nib and sits around the bottom there, and then the cap turns around and goes on top there. So there's a hole in there, and water goes in there and sits around the piston area. Well, you stop that water when you put the cap on, and I think that'd, you know, fix a lot of problems that can happen in the future from water. I've got a whole bag of them, and over time I'm going to be putting them on all the bleeding nibs. So yeah, there's the brake pads there. They're new. I replaced them about 3 years ago. Okay, we've got a confirmed caliper, sticking caliper problem. We'll see that the bike moves freely now. Unfortunately for me, this rubber seal here is all brittle and cracked. It's made out of rubber, but if I break it away from the piston, it cracks like it's brittle. This seal is probably about 32 years old, but at the same time, I wouldn't recommend using degreaser on a motorbike because of it could actually help it to wear out faster and become brittle. Also, we've got this retaining clip. I've had a look on eBay. It's about $35 for the piston seal and the outside seal. So and it's going to take about a month to get here or more. So for today, I'm just going to fix it so that the piston is moving freely. The information I've got here is looks like 83 stamped there. Girling, G-I-R-L-I-N-G, and the number's 3432506, and it could be a 1 maybe. 3432506. Now I'll just push the brake pedal here and keep it topped up. I'll try and drive this piston out. So at this stage I've just stuffed a rag around to catch any brake fluid. Okay, so there we have it. You can see the brake fluid coming out when I press the brakes. Okay, so there's two seals for the rear caliper. One seal seems to sit over this outside metal edge, and it sits inside there. That'll be the piston seal, and then it also goes into a groove here on the outside, and there's a metal circlip around the outside there to hold the seal, and there's also one there on the outside edge of the piston. Okay, I'll give it a clean up and reassemble it, and I'll do the seal kit later. I'll replace the two seals, but as I say, it's a month's wait and about $35. Okay, so I've cleaned that out in there. Now I'll put a bit more brake fluid into the reservoir there, just to flush it out, make sure that none of this brake cleaner's gone into the brake fluid. Okay, I've got some brake caliper grease, and I'll just lubricate the piston with it. Here we go. That'll be the air in the caliper. Now I've got to make sure that these slide freely on the inside there. So just pulled out a bit of rubber that probably belongs to the to that boot there. Okay, I've cleaned and put some grease on that, so they can now sit back in there. Okay, so what I've done is I've found that this rubber boot, there's a sort of a lip. There's a lip at the top or in the middle, just around there. If I move it down, instead of it being up there, in other words, if I move it down, then it sits in that slot there, and that should be good. That's it. Okay, so what I've got is a small container. There's a bit of brake fluid in there. It's got a hole in the top, and the hose goes down to the bottom underneath this fluid. You may be able to see the hose moving there. I'll connect the other side of the nib to the bleeding valve up there. The container has to be below the line of the caliper. I'll crack open the bleeder valve. I'll start pumping the brakes. Don't let your reservoir at your front brake pedal bleed dry. Just keep on topping it up and flush it through. Close the valve to lock that work in. Just put a bit of CRC around the outside, not down in there, and I'll just give this protective cover bit of lubricant, and just put him there with the hole in the cap up the top, and slide that over there, put the cap on, and you're good to go. Because as I say, if you don't put a protective cover over it, water and rain will get in here, and the water will get up against your piston. So yeah, just top her up. I'd like to say at this point that I'm not a mechanic or auto electrician. I'm not a motorcycle mechanic or electrician, so you know, do your own homework and just watch the videos and study up before you do your own work.